80s and 90s, some commercials were extremely successful, while others failed miserably. In the case of Rax Roast Beef chain, this commercial did exactly that. It supposedly brought down the entire company, and that is not even the full story. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the series of decisions that led to the decline of what used to be one of the most popular beloved restaurants, and how this commercial was the nail in the coffin.
You see, Mr. Delicious is, well, a little overextended. Perhaps the Rax executives aren't paying him enough to compromise his integrity. On the other hand, you can't eat integrity.
It all started in 1967 when Jack Roshman founded Rax Roast Beef in Springfield, Ohio. Upon graduating from college, Roshman pushed various business ventures, but Jack had always been drawn to fast food business. He was willing to operate a McDonald's store in Ohio, but Ray Kroc turned him down because he thought that he was too young. Jack decided to venture out on his own, and he started Jack's Roast Beef. Because he loved developing new ideas, he sold Jack's Roast Beef to General Foods, which they rebranded it to Rax Roast Beef. Over the next decade, the business faltered, and Rax found itself on the brink of collapse. It was down to just 10 locations, and that's when General Foods sold the remainder of Rax to the Restaurant Administration Corporate. RIC renamed the chain to Rax Roast Beef and decided to focus on the roast beef business. By 1982, Rax rapidly expanded its chain to over 221 stores across 25 states. The menu was very simple. You could get roast beef, salad at the salad bar, soft drink, fries, and baked potatoes. In the late 80s, they launched a new campaign featuring the great musician Al Anderson from the band NRBQ. They later tried making him the face of Rax Company.
If I saw a new sign on the same old place, had a new hamburger with the same old taste.
The 80s were the peak years for Rax Roast Beef. The chain had grown to over 500 locations in 38 states, along with a few restaurants in Guatemala. But as the 80s rolled on, things started to get a little crazy. Rax began a series of almost continuous changes to its business model. There wasn't a clear reason, but Rax added a large variety of different foods. Adding potatoes is a harmless enough addition, but then they added pizza, a dinner bar with pasta, Chinese food, a taco bar, an endless salad bar, and a dessert bar. I mean, they tried to be everything to everyone. They also began massively overhauling the restaurant, and they did expensive and unnecessary renovations, including transforming its restaurant from basic and simple architecture into designs containing wood elements and solariums. The idea was basically to make Rax a fancy place to eat, but this seeming identity crisis only served to drive away its core working class customers, resulting in profits plummeting. They should have stuck with the roast beef thing and just worried about Arby's, their primary competitor. However, they launched some ads that had some very bizarre acting choices, even for the 90s and 80s.
But at Rax, we've got an eeny, a meeny, and a miny. Where's Mo?
There ain't no Mo.
There is also one where a phone eats a sandwich. And there's one where a woman wants a pita pocket with a meatball in it and she explodes.
With a pocket of tangy Italian.
Adding to the downturn was a management takeover of the company in 1991, and numerous changes occurred within the company. In 1992, the chain faded into obscurity. In a desperate attempt to bring back their lost customers, a new advertising mascot was made. Enter in Mr. Delicious.
Hello, I'm Mr. Delicious, the new spokesman for Rax Restaurants. My job? To encourage you to enjoy tasty, affordable meals in a more mature dining environment.
Mr. Delicious was a sad, middle-aged divorcee who hated his life but found solace in Rax's offering. He speaks every line with an astonishing lack of energy, void of any hint of joy, sarcasm, or modulation in pitch. Even the tagline is depressing.
Rax, you can eat here.
Even though Mr. Delicious is a cartoon himself, he is not hesitant to throw down the truth gauntlet and admit right up that cartoons are for babies.
I know what you're thinking. He's a cartoon. And cartoons are mostly for people who wet their pants. But not Mr. D. He's a special cartoon for adults. And Mr. Delicious always carries this briefcase.
Much of the humor of the commercials comes from Mr. D talking about how depressing his life is.
And that vacation he took to Bora Bora with those two young friends, well, that left Mr. Delicious feeling empty and unfulfilled.
Besides talking about how depressing his life is, he also talked about his vasectomy.
That's just grand, because Mr. Delicious just had some rather delicate surgery. If there's no change, he doesn't have to squirm so much to put it back in his pocket, now does he?
He's on his second marriage. He spends too much time at the bar. He rolls into Rax with a terrible hangover, He is both effete and signals that he is wealthy while also being working class. Rax isn't paying him enough.
Mr. Delicious is, well, a little overextended. Perhaps the Rax executives aren't paying him enough to compromise his integrity. On the other hand, you can't eat integrity.
And he also loves to read romance novels while eating Rax.
He can lose himself in a cheap romance novel without his elbows sticking to the table. And Mr. Delicious always leaves Rax with a few bucks left.
Now, I can only assume that he met his end in a cheap motel under mysterious circumstances. The nihilistic tone of the ads was intended to appeal to Gen X humor, but instead it just ended up driving away Rax's remaining customers. Needless to say, the campaign backfired spectacularly, as Mr. Delicious' nihilistic persona failed to resonate with customers. As for Mr. D himself, he made 3 appearances in radio and television advertisements before retiring. Rax even created a mini documentary about him.
Mr. Delicious is a controversial character, but controversy attracts attention. And for every bad reaction we get from Mr. Delicious, we get hundreds of positive ones.
So, what did Rax do after this marketing campaign? Well, exactly 3 months later, they filed for bankruptcy. And by 1994, Rax became a Hardy franchisee. Hardee's holding company planned to convert all the old Rax restaurants into Hardee's by 1997. But that never panned out because Rax went bankrupt again in 1996. As part of the turnaround plan, Rax tried back a simpler menu, a new prototype, a new logo, and color scheme. Unfortunately, none of those things worked out. In 1996, Wendy's International made an offer to purchase 37 Rax restaurants, intending to convert most of them into Tim Hortons. This caused a change in strategy, and a buyer was sought for the remaining company-owned restaurants. In 1997, the remaining company-owned stores were purchased by Cassidy and Associates. From that point forward, the historical record gets even fuzzier, but we do know one thing for sure. Rax kept losing restaurants over the years. By December of 2005, the brand was owned by Carpe Diem Management Co. With 51 locations, they created a new mascot, a smiling anthropomorphic reptile named Uncle Alligator, who was dominant in all kids' meals and toys, always involving in some sort of sport or activity. Now, as of 2024, there are only 6 locations left, and they're in Ohio, Kentucky, and Illinois. So Rax Roast Beef might not be here for much longer. And still, the question is, what's in the suitcase? So, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, and of course see you in the next video.